everyone, and welcome to Coffee Chat by Toronto-U.S chapter. I'm your host, Rishta Ranjan. Let's get together for a cup of coffee and join me in welcoming our guest today, Rupinder Dhillon. Welcome, Rupinder.
Thank you very much, Rashida, for having me. I'm super glad to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you for joining us. Pleasure is all ours. A quick bio of Rupinder. Rupinder is head of Enterprise Data Office at Sobeys and is a strategic business enabler and data leader for over 2 decades. She has led in areas such as enterprise BI, data management, digital transformation, and most recently, AI and ML strategies. She champions using data for driving innovation. She's also on the advisory board for Rotman, Master of Management Analytics program. Furthermore, she's a well-respected mentor for women in STEM and women in data. Rupinder, we are going to get started with a fun fact. I came across this fun fact about you that you once appeared on a televised panel discussion to debate all things Star Trek. Tell us more about it.
Well, lucky for me, it was back before everything went on YouTube. So luckily, no one can go back and actually find this. But yeah, I many years ago, I had a friend who was a producer at the Space Channel and wanted to do something different with her panel around Star Trek. She knew I was a big fan and was talking about it all the time. Back then, I used to watch the shows and was excited about a movie coming out. And she wanted to have a very diverse panel talking about it. So had the opportunity to go on and debate and talk to some really smart, wonderful people who some of them I'm still friends with now, even 20 years later. So yeah, it was something that pushed me outside of my comfort zone. And something I learned early on that you got to push yourself out of your comfort zone. So yeah, but like I said, I'm glad it's not on YouTube.
Well, I wish it was on YouTube. Next, we want to learn from your observations. What has been your biggest challenges of women in data?
Challenges. Well, I think the challenges for women in data, I think, aren't unique to women in data. I think there's similarities and challenges for women in tech in general and women in leadership roles in general. If I kind of rewind back, like I said, I've been in this space for over 20 years now, and it's drastically changed over the last 20 years. Early on in my career, there weren't a lot of female, I guess, leaders or role models to look up to in this space to show that yes, I could do that. I was actually very lucky. I think I've shared this story with you before, but when my first job out of school, I was a mainframe programmer and my leader was a woman. And so just being able to see that right out of school, it grounded me in that this can be normal, right? Having a female leader in a very technical space can absolutely be, something that is normal and you can strive for. And having that, I think that foundation early on was super important because I went through a long stretch without having a lot of female representation, especially in the leadership layer, being in the technology space. And so I think it's really, how do you get a voice at the table? How do you get your ideas across in a way that isn't, you don't have to be the loudest voice in the room, right? And just making sure that you get opportunities. And that's sometimes difficult. I think it's gotten a lot better in the last five or 6 years. I think if I look around, it's absolutely completely different in terms of the makeup of a lot of technology teams, of a lot of data teams, of a lot of data science teams, machine learning teams. But I still think we have a way to go. And I think I think what COVID has shown is that we still have a ways to go, right? I think the strain of COVID, especially for women who have kids at home, who have some of those things that they've got that they, disproportionately perhaps have to take care of. I think, all the equality that we think that we've gained over the last couple of years or the last, decade, I think COVID showed that we still have a ways to go. And I think, there's numbers to back it up in terms of how many women left the workforce during COVID because they had to be the primary caregiver. So I think there's still work that we have to do, even though we've made a lot of progress in this space.
Yes, that's true. And what are your suggestions to overcome these challenges?
I think it's so one is this is what I also sort of picked up as I was kind of learning my own leadership style. It's natural to sort of mimic the leadership style of people that you see around you, right? And so when you're in a space that is very, either male dominated or just lack of diversity in general, it's hard to find your own voice because you're often finding yourself mimicking the leadership styles of other people. And so I learned early on that, when I tried to do that, I was not showing up my best. It didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel confident because I was trying to mimic a style of a male leader or, a male counterpart. And it wasn't until I really started stepping into, here's what my leadership style looks like. Like I lead through my teams. I like my team's work to show, right? I'm not going to always be the loudest person in the room, but I want our work to speak for itself. That I really started to hit a groove, right? And started to hit a rhythm because it felt more natural to me, right? And once you're acting or you're showing up in a way that is much more natural and authentic to you, I think it makes a big difference in your confidence level.
Yeah, so well said. We need to be true to ourselves and identify our own leadership style. Thank you. And for women interested in building a career in data space, what would be your advice to them to be successful?
That's a great, so a couple of things. And this is something that I share with a lot of people, especially as they're starting out, but even a little bit later in their careers. So one is, be clear on what your strengths are, right? Understand them. I think I learned a little bit later in my career that it's okay to spend time to self-reflect. I always found that very self-indulgent, like, no, just go, go, go. But taking a pause and taking some time to self-reflect on, why did that situation not feel right? Like, or why didn't that one work out the way that I expected it to? And what was my reaction? It gives you a lot of insight into, what are your strengths? What are you comfortable with? And what are you less comfortable with? And so I think, taking some time to understand your motivations, what drives you, what your strengths are super, super important. On the data side, I always tell people who have kind of come up through the tech stream that you have to take some time to learn the business stream as well and understand what it is what are the main business drivers in your organization? What are the main business pain points that you're trying to solve? Actually dig in and understand the KPIs and what gets the KPI to move in one direction or another. Those things are so critical to data. If you're showing up strictly from a technical lens, it takes that much longer to get there. And I would argue the work isn't as fulfilling. So really understand the business side. And then I would also say to the business folks, if you're coming up through the business stream, take some time to understand the technical side. What's kept me interested in data this long is not just the fact that it's constantly evolving, but it's such a gray zone of where business and technology have completely merged together. And so I think, for folks who want to do well in this space, I think you gotta have a good appreciation for both. And then lastly, for people who are starting to build teams and get into those leadership roles, especially in the data space, an appreciation for diversity. Diversity of thought, diversity of skill sets, diversity of even backgrounds. It doesn't have to be only the comp sci people. Bring in people from social sciences into your group, people from economics into your group, because again, you want that diversity to really challenge some of the approaches and the traditional approaches that have always been done. And then lastly, because this feeds into the last part, creativity and curiosity is so important in this space, right? You have to lead with creativity and also just curiosity, and that's such a big driver in the data space.
Yes. So again, so well said and such insightful suggestions. Thank you, Rupinder. Our last question is, as we are heading to New Year, what is one thing you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Sobeys journey. So I've been at Sobeys now. I joined in August, and the big reason I joined is just part of the transformation that the organization is on right now. There's a lot of exciting things happening in the grocery space, and Sobeys is at the forefront of that. And so I'm excited about how do you make data kind of core to every single thing that we do, making sure that you're getting it into the hands of the right people, making sure that it's making a difference in how people are operating just day to day, and how do we make sure that we're making good data-driven decisions. We're also leveraging automation wherever we can with data. So a very exciting roadmap ahead for Sobeys, and that's really what I'm looking forward to rolling up my sleeves and diving into the new year.
Yeah, definitely exciting times ahead. Thank you, Rupinder, for chatting with us today. It was a pleasure to have you on this coffee chat. And on that note, I would like to thank all our audience for tuning in. Join us next time. Till then, take care. Bye.